Boil water advisories, sadly, are nothing new in many parts of the province, and that's not even the worst of it. Here to explain, Jon Thompson. He is our Northwestern Ontario Hubs editor, and he joins us now from Thunder Bay. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jan.
Now, you had a chance last week to visit Neskantaga First Nations, which is home to Canada's longest-standing boil water advisory. What caused it to declare a state of emergency over the weekend?
The Neskantaga First Nation first had a boil water advisory declared in the community in 1995. And so it's now in its 25th year, which, as you pointed out correctly, makes it the longest standing boil water advisory in a First Nation in Canada. I was up in Neskantaga a week ago Wednesday, and while I was there, the contractor that was working on the water treatment plant was removed from the community. The chief and council declared them unwelcome and banned their workers from working there. The understanding that they gave to the federal government on that day was that they're looking to complete the plant themselves. There's about 20% left. This had been, Carolyn Bennett, when she was INAC minister, had suggested this would be finished on May the 30th, 2018. There was a recent article in Maclean's magazine in which the federal government representative said this would now be finished in March of 2019. I toured the plant. I can tell you conclusively that it was not close to being finished. I am not an expert in water filtration systems, but there were things like walls weren't even complete, washrooms weren't in place. So that was significant. On Saturday, the community declared a state of emergency, requesting that the federal government send bottled water to the community until the boil water advisory is lifted. And then on Wednesday, the Indigenous Services Canada contributed $160,000 for bottled water for each home in Neskantaga, at which point it suggests that that is going to run out at the end of May. And that gives us yet another timeline. But it's essential to remember this has been going on for a quarter century now.
And I want to bring up another community. It's been a month since Cat Lake First Nations in Northern Ontario also declared a state of emergency. What's happening there? In Queen's Park yesterday during question period, that concern was brought up. What do we need to know about that place?
Cat Lake has about 87 of the 128 houses in Cat Lake could be condemned for mold. This is so a widespread community outbreak of mold in housing. That's not new. I've seen that in a number of First Nations throughout my career. There's been a long-standing problem with housing being built to standards that are not suited for the climate, frankly. Earlier this week, 48-year-old Nashi Umbash died and her doctors had told the leadership of the community, politicians on a number of levels, federal and provincial, that the cause of her death was due to the mold in her home. There were discussions about evacuating that community. On Thursday, Indigenous Services Canada Minister Seamus O'Regan announced in Thunder Bay that an agreement has been reached with the Tribal Council, in which Cat Lake is a member, that will allow for dozens of homes to be built once a stronger, tighter agreement becomes possible with the First Nation, which we expect on March 8th. In the meantime, we're expecting a possibility of 10 homes to go up on the ice roads before the ice roads go out this year. And again, 10 is not going to be 87, but a plan is in place and to begin working on this. On Thursday, Kiiwetinoong NDP MPP Sol Mamakwa called on the provincial government to send a health team up to determine the health aspects of living in these homes for the people who are living there. The response from Greg Rickford, who actually served as a nurse in that community in his life before politics, was that the federal government has been dragging its feet on the housing issue in general, Cat Lake in specific. And that's also relevant because Mr. Rickford was the federal MP for that riding between 2008 and 2015. And so presumptuously then, we can only assume that he's saying that in the last 3 years, the federal government has failed on this responsibility, and not the federal government prior to that, in which he was a cabinet member.
Now, there's another issue in Thunder Bay that the government is being asked to help with, and it has to do with financing the recommendations outlined in the Systemic Racism Report, which we've covered extensively here and came out in December. Where do things stand on that front?
The municipality of Thunder Bay was passing its budget, and during the budget process, the chief of police, Sylvie Hoth, approached City Council requesting an additional $1.1 million in order to address many of, not all of, but some of the recommendations in the OIPRD report, which our viewers will remember found systemic racism in the Thunder Bay Police Service, and a further report found it in its board. The mayor, former MPP and now Mayor Bill Morrow, has suggested that these are costs that are being imposed upon the city, and not by the government of the day, not by the Crown, but by an agency of the Crown. And so lobbying efforts are now underway at both the provincial and federal levels by the municipality in order to try to recover some of those costs, and further support the police as it's attempting to respond to a very damning report that gives Thunder Bay a great deal of national attention regarding racism in a systemic sense in the police force.
And we know that the province announced a new bill that would overhaul Ontario's police oversight system. One of those changes would be to revamp the same agency that was responsible for that report. Any reaction from locals in Thunder Bay?
Everybody I've asked in the last couple of days has said that that is a terrific question, but it's too early. And so as part of the Ontario Civilian Police Commission report, the new Thunder Bay Police Services board members are currently undergoing a series of trainings. They were in those trainings when the provincial government announced these new regulations, this new legislation. And so they're currently attempting to apply the previous standards and ensure that what the board is learning will be consistent with the new legislation. Of course, the devil is always in the details in terms of regulation that will arise from this legislation. Also, the previous legislation, the Liberal legislation known as the Safer Ontario Act, included provisions that would have changed the status of First Nations policing organizations. So the organizations that police First Nations communities are currently known as programs rather than services. And there are a whole lot of really important differences between those things, including that they would become an essential service. It is not yet clear from this legislation yet in terms of what that means for those very large and proven in court systems, systemically underfunded police services that handle some of the most impoverished communities in all of Ontario.
Now, I want to change gears a little bit. Next Wednesday on the agenda, we'll be discussing immigration, specifically how to make it more evenly distributed across Ontario. Now, you were an MC this month at a conference that examined migration to the north. I want to know, what was the biggest takeaway from that conference for you?
The biggest takeaway is that the need is here already. I covered a story in 2015 where the North Superior Workforce Planning Board suggested that the Thunder Bay District, so the population of this area, 150,000 people, is going to need 50,000 people by 2041 in order to just sustain the size of its economy. And there was a lot of shock at that time. And here we are only 4 years later, not even 4 years later, and we're already starting to see major industries and major service sectors seeing the baby boomers retiring at a rapid rate and needing replacement for workers now. That population is aging rapidly. The ability that Northern Ontario as a whole has to attract and retain immigrants is international immigrants is very, very limited. And for decades, for our readers who don't know, there has been limited opportunity for youth to grow up and stay here. And so when you come of age to go to post-secondary education or get a job, chances are you're going to leave the community and either be able to return or go elsewhere. A lot of the latter has happened over the last 4 or 5 generations that has left us in this situation. And so when the budget consultations have been happening, the provincial and federal level, we are seeing the wood industry, we're seeing the healthcare industry in particular saying already, we need dozens of workers right now. And that's something that I don't think anybody saw coming quite as quickly as it's coming now. There was a federal plan that was released a couple of weeks ago. The federal government is looking to have targeted immigration. Northern Ontario is being encouraged very strongly to apply for that. It looks as though right now Northeastern Ontario and Northwestern Ontario will attempt to approach that issue differently. We'll know more about that, I think, in January.
A story we will continue to monitor. Jon Thompson, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for bringing these important stories to us. That's Jon Thompson, our Northwestern Ontario Hub editor.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.